Hello guys, what's going on? This is Surur and welcome to this Surur photography tutorial series where I'm going to be teaching about content creation and how to be creative. And not only how to be creative, hopefully I would be able to show you how to express your art or whatever it is that you have in your mind for the world to see. Art is a way of expressing yourself. So having the ability and the right tools to share with people, whether it's photography or videography, similar to the route that I've taken, or maybe writing, singing, whatever it is that feels good to you or feels true to you, is essentially what we're going to talk about. So guys, with all of that being said, let's get started. So whether you are a professional photographer or just a travel photographer that just takes pictures for fun, or whether you just own a camera and you just want to know how to use it, this tutorial is the best for you and you are hopefully watching the right video. So it's always really hard to make a decision about which camera to buy or which settings to use on your camera. There are like ranges and a lot of cameras out there in the markets, ranging from $100 to more than $10,000. It doesn't really matter what equipment you are using. It doesn't really matter if you are using an iPhone to take a photo or to shoot a video. Also, all that matters is how you choose to tell your story. So before you go deeper, I want you to understand one thing about photography. It's so easy. It's simply a way of emulating the way we view life with our own eye into a camera or using a camera. So just imagine our life as a movie and we are perceiving that movie through our eyes, which is the lens, and we have an iris. So this iris represents the aperture in our eyes. It controls the light that enters in our eyes. So when it closes, it gets in less light, and when it opens, it gets in more light, just depending on the environment that you are in. And our brain chooses our focal point and chooses to focus on whatever it is that it wants to focus on. This is technically what happens in the case of cameras. So let's start with the camera. We have the iPhone, we have the GoPro, we have the maybe vlogging cameras. You don't have to be an expert to operate those. So there are automatic cameras that are well ready for you to just shoot and go. You don't even have to set them, even though sometimes they give you the option to set them. So on the other hand, a DSLR is the kind of camera that allows you to change a lens. You can switch between lenses. You can play around with your settings, even though it has the automatic settings, but in most cases you might want to do your settings to get the best out of them. So for taking photos or videos, your first step is lighting, and for you to get the right lighting, there are some couple settings in your camera that you have to get together. You would have to customize them to give you the perfect lighting for your scene. For example, now, goodness, it looks super different, right? Back to the world. This is fun though. So you see how it changed all of the story and all of what we are talking about here. Lighting is just so essential. Just light placement, how you place your light and how you arrange your lighting is super important in telling your story. So let's begin with the aperture, or the f-stop, which is the unit for measuring the aperture. If you are unfamiliar with what an aperture is, it's simply, as I explained earlier, it's simply the pupil in your eye, just in this case on a lens. So the same way our pupil dilates to allow a very small amount of light to get into our eye, it also expands in terms of low light situations. At night, your eye expands to its maximum to allow as much light as possible. This is exactly what happens when shooting in low light situations. You open your eyes wide open. So in this case, you open your lens wide open for light to come in order to expose your environment or your scene. When shooting at night, for example, you would want to take your aperture to about f1.4, which expands an f1.4 lens to the maximum. So if it doesn't, you can easily compensate by adjusting some other settings like the shutter speed and the ISO, which we are coming to. We have different ranges of f-stop. It starts from, like, we have some lenses that are 0.9 or so. These are some old vintage lenses, but most importantly, the lenses that are mostly common now on DSLRs start from about 1.2. We have the 1.4, we have the 1.8, we have the 2.0, 2.2, 2.8, 2.5, 3.0, 3.5. upwards 4.0 up to f22. So when you are shooting outside, for example in a sunny day, you would want to use like f22. This would just kill the whole light and allow a very small amount of light to enter your sensor just to get your perfect scene. And this emulates exactly what happens in your eye. So one thing you should be aware of stylistically is the depth of field. Depth of field is simply the blurry background that you see on photos. So when you shoot in a very low f-stop, which results in the very high, very large opening of your aperture of your lens, which is your eye technically, so it results in a very shallow depth of field. Likewise, when you use a very high aperture, like for landscapes, or maybe when you're shooting outside in the sunny day, it results in it keeps everything in focus, so you won't have to deal with so much depth of field. So next on our lighting setup is the ISO. So sometimes you might find yourself wondering why these cameras are so expensive nowadays. Why? It's just a camera, it looks exactly like the other one. Why is it so expensive? Oh, I want to buy the 5D, I want to buy the Mark 3, Mark 4, whatever it is. So for me personally, I mean, based on my experience so far, I've upgraded to multiple cameras so far. So what I noticed, which makes the most difference between the cameras, is the ISO. So an ISO is created in a camera is simply to emulate the film stock. So before, when people used to use the film cameras, I don't know a lot about film cameras honestly, but what I know is that then they have different ISOs. I mean, physically, I mean, you can see an ISO, you can hold it in your hand, but right now it's all in your camera, so you can change your ISO from different levels to different levels. The minimum amount of ISO you can use is 100 or 50. Some cameras have the 50 ISO as their base ISO. Some bigger cameras like the C series, those are like some high-end cameras that are used by filmmakers. So those ones, their base ISO could be around 850 or so. Think of an ISO as just like a fake light. This is the easiest way to explain an ISO. So the higher your ISO, you might end up getting a grainy photo depending on the camera. There is where the camera price lies. Some expensive cameras give you the best difference in their ISOs, most of them actually. When the ISO, like some of them might go to up to like a 6400 ISO, and you can still get a grain free footage or a grain free picture. Some might give you their best at 800 ISO, like all these small cameras like the 1200D, 700D. All of these expensive cameras can go to very high ISO points and you can still get your footage or your photo without any grains, and this will give you a more chance to shoot in low light situations, which is so super important, especially as a professional. You would never know when your next paycheck is coming from. It might be from that wedding in the desert, midnight, and you would have to use the very little amount. I don't advise you to go to a desert for a wedding shoot though. But yeah, if it pays well, then why not? I mean, I'm just saying. So right now I'm shooting this video on a 5D Mark III, and it's super powerful when it comes to all these light situations. I'm shooting on a 35mm 1.4. It's my favorite lens actually. After I got this lens, trust me, I sold almost all of my lenses. I don't know why I did that, but I'm so comfortable with this lens. So all in all, the lower your ISO, the darker your image is, and the higher your ISO, the more light you get on your photo. So you definitely need to know how to balance your lighting. You just need to focus on practice. If you practice very well, you would understand these things more. So I can talk and talk and talk and talk. You might not understand whatever I'm talking about, but when you put into work, when you practice a lot, you would understand what I'm saying. So let's move to shutter speed. So another way to affect lighting is the shutter speed, even though it's not the most resourceful way to affect lighting. So shutter speed is literally how fast your shutter opens and closes. For example, if you're shooting a very fast motion, maybe you're shooting sports, or maybe you're shooting a car or a bird that is flying up the sky, or shooting something that is moving like I don't know, when you want to capture emotion, you would want to use a very high shutter speed. In cases of like shooting waterfalls, shooting the clouds, or maybe even in the studio, sometimes you might want to do something like the shutter drag. I see a lot of photographers doing that. I also tried it sometimes, but I love it. It's a very cool effect. So if you want to do that, you would want to try using a very low shutter speed. So all these three settings, you combine them together. Just as a recap, the aperture, ISO, and shutter speed, they work hand in hand. You have to kind of balance them in order to get the best exposure possible for your picture or for your video. In the case of video, you would want to always choose the shutter speed as a double of your frame rate. So for example, if you're shooting at 24 frames per second, you would want to stick around like 1/48th of a second, or maybe 1/50th of a second. Some cameras of nowadays like 1/40th or 1/50th. Just take it to the closest you can find. There's also framing. Know exactly how to frame your photos. There is what we call polarizers or ND filters, something like what I have here. So these are some, that should sound crazy. So these are some filters that you can just tie them on your lens and just shoot in very harsh situations. It's just like wearing sunglasses but in this case your camera is going to be wearing the sunglasses. So I don't know if you can see that. I don't have an autofocus, so it won't focus very well. So these are different shades. I mean, one is darker, this is darker than this, and this is lighter than them. So maybe in late evenings you might want to use the lighter one, and in like harsh sunlight it polarizes the light and it kind of cuts down the light intensity of your lenses, so it gives you less flare and less highlight effects and less everything. So just imagine wearing a sunglass. How would you see the world? So this is exactly what happens here. So guys, if you have reached this point in this video, I appreciate you so much. I hope you have learned so much from this video. Please don't forget to leave a comment and give me a thumbs up, and subscribe if you haven't yet subscribed, and join the notification squad. So there is one bell that you will see just next to the subscription below. Hit on the bell so that you get alerted whenever I post. I'm still learning, we're all learning, so if you have anything to add to my knowledge, please leave it down in the comments below. Follow me on Surur Photography to see more of my work. Follow me on This is Surur to see more of my personal works and my travel works. See you guys on the next one. Bye.